All right. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the afternoon sessions. Hopefully you got all your lunch in or full and ready to learn about all the stuff we talked about this morning during April and Stuart's keynotes. So my name is Sean Rose. I'm the product manager for Shared Channels. I've been at Slack for about 3 years now, and before working on this, I actually spent about 2 years working on Platform. Way back then, in 2015, when we did the initial platform launch, and really all the way back to the beginning of Slack, one thing that we realized is that platform isn't simply a feature for Slack. It's an essential part. And what I mean by that is, if you think about all of the things that compose work communication, it's not just the messages you send to your coworkers. It's all of the things you get from the apps and services you use to do work. So think about things like Google Docs or commits in GitHub, leads in Salesforce. The list goes on and on and on. And so we think of platform as something that is necessary for us to be the place where work happens for people. And that's not possible without our developer ecosystem behind it. And so I'm super excited to share with you today how we're expanding the opportunity for our developer ecosystem with Shared Channels and the opportunity to build apps for cross-company work. So earlier today, you heard from April about Shared Channels. In short, it's a new way for two organizations to work together in a shared workspace using channels just like they do with their own teams. We put a big emphasis on ensuring that the experience was just like what you see inside of a channel working with your own team. And you can see that in the screenshot that we pulled together. There's lots of tiny details around the other team being present in the channel and all of those things. But at the core of it, we wanted the experience to feel just like Slack. And when it comes to that, one of the big things that we considered from day one is this idea that apps and integrations are going to be one of the most impactful things we can deliver and make available in Shared Channels. And so when we think about that, you have to think beyond Slack and about the problems that people have when they're doing cross-company work. There's really simple things that seem like they should be straightforward, like setting up a conference call that require endless back and forths, fighting over whose conference system you're going to use, and things like that. Simple things like keeping track of a task or a follow-up can get lost in the wrong person's inbox and forgotten or done late. And so with apps and Shared Channels, we're hoping to give you a canvas upon which you can build apps that will solve all these problems in much fewer steps, all in one place in Slack. And so what I'm going to cover today is all of the stuff that's new for developers and the platform. And that includes things like, how does your app appear in a shared channel? What's the experience like for a user that's using your app in a shared channel? We're also going to touch on some of the new use cases that we're starting to see emerge from people using shared channels just even in our beta. And lastly, we're going to talk about the design considerations that we had for platform and how we're actually building shared channels itself, along with all of the new tools and features that you're going to be able to use as you're building an app for shared channels starting today. So let's get started. So show of hands, how many of you are working on a business that either integrates with Slack or is planning to do so at some point in the future? So that's most of the room. I actually can't see any of you because of the sun, but I imagine it's most of the room. So you know that one of the hardest problems that you have as an app developer is getting your app to the right people, and not only doing that, but ensuring that they have the right context to understand that it's valuable for them and the problems that they're having. And there's a ton of different avenues people can go through to work on this problem. You have everything from advertising to referral systems to every single angle of sales and marketing. But even in Slack itself, we have things like the app directory, and we're bringing these things closer and closer to users by pulling them into our desktop client and making it even faster to discover these things. However, these things only work to a certain extent, and even when they do, they require a ton of work on your end to create this notion of context where your app is actually valuable. You have to go to these great lengths to write out long descriptions with these really contrived scenarios of, you're going to need this then, come up with these really elaborate screenshots, videos. You all know this song and dance. It's pretty difficult. And again, all those things work, and we're not going to replace those. But when it comes to shared channels, we're starting to kind of fundamentally change this. Now, within a shared channel, each team can bring its own apps and integrations into the channel when they're working with another organization. And this is extremely powerful because instead of all that work you needed to do to demonstrate how your app is valuable for someone who's never used it before, the people they're working with can use it immediately right in front of them and see why it's valuable. So to take an example, we use Zoom for teleconferencing at Slack. And if we want to start a conference call with somebody inside of a shared channel or one of our regular channels, all we have to do is type /Zoom. And at that point, Zoom will start the conference call immediately on my behalf, post the link into the channel, including the meeting ID that I can send to other people, and people can join the call directly from there. It's really simple. And after the call is done, Zoom will post a transcript of the meeting, including who attended and a recording, if I want to actually include that. And all that happens automatically into that same shared channel. You know, comparing to the experience you had before of kind of fighting over conference calls and getting that all set up, this is a huge improvement over that. And so you can think of your customers at this point as not just people who are using your app, but they're the people who are going out there and showing other people why it's valuable too in an immediate context. And if the other team wants to go and install your app, they're just a few clicks away from going to our app directory and getting it for themselves. And so when we think about all the new opportunities you might have for shared channels, it's tempting to think of the Slack you know and love up until today, which has been mostly built for working within a single organization with your immediate teammates. But thinking beyond Slack, again, like you need to think about the problems that exist in cross-company work and think about how, with this new opportunity we have with shared channels, how you can do them uniquely and differently with the new tools that we're offering. And so thinking about simple things that happen really, really frequently, like negotiating contracts, working on documents, approval workflows, handling payments. Now with shared channels, because you can have this common space where both organizations are working together, there's a new opportunity for how you can actually build these sorts of things that makes them much, much easier to use. And to take a few examples, we actually have a few partners that April mentioned at the keynote this morning who are launching with shared channels ready apps today. So the first one you can see on your left-hand side is Harvest. So Harvest does work with contractors. So if you're working with a contractor using Harvest, you can actually use Harvest to immediately start a timer for billing the contractor, keep track of your budget, and frequently check in on how much you're actually reaching on your project budget. Similarly, with Dropbox, you can immediately find all of your important documents without leaving Slack just by typing their / command. And if you need to, you can share the document back into the channel with the other organization immediately, including a preview of all the important bits of the document itself. And so again, these aren't huge things per se in terms of like a big shiny change and everything, but these are the tiny tasks that take up a ton of the time that you end up doing when you're working in these cross-company contexts. And what might be familiar to you if you're working on the platform already is that all of the tools and building blocks that you have are pretty much the same. All of the interactive elements you're familiar with, like message buttons and message menus, the core bits like the Events API, the Web API, app unfurls, bot users, all of those things work in shared channels already. As I mentioned before, one of the big things that we wanted to accomplish with shared channels when we launched it was making it look and feel just like Slack when you're working with your other team. And ensuring that all of these components worked in shared channels was a very critical part of that. And even though we have all of these existing things working in shared channels today, we do have a few new things that we want to show you that we think will make not only building for shared channels better, but building for Slack in general a lot easier. So today we're happy to announce the Conversations API. So this is a new API we built to help deal with channels and channel-like objects in Slack. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what that means. But the basic idea here is that if you think about a shared channel, what you're probably assuming is that it is just a channel underneath. And if you look at the JSON for it from our API, it is really just that. There's just a couple new attributes that tell you that it's shared and who it's shared with. But like I was talking about before, the difference in a shared channel versus a regular channel, which is just inside of someone's organization, can mean an enormous difference in terms of what type of app you're building. And so by default, you're only going to receive shared DMs and shared channels and the like if you're using the Conversations API, because we didn't want to impose a lot of unnecessary consequences on you from the get-go as soon as people start installing this a couple of hours ago. And even though we had developers in our ecosystem top of mind as we were building this, we actually do really believe that this is a better way for dealing with channels and channel-like things in Slack. And so much so that we actually already have this integrated into all of our own clients today. If you go in and look at the traffic from our mobile app, for example, you'll see all of these APIs already flying in full effect. And so you're probably wondering, I get that, but what actually is it? And so if you, I guess, another show of hands, how many people have worked with the web API in Slack to date? So almost as many people as before, I think. But you're no doubt familiar with this. We kind of have 4 sets of endpoints that work with things like channels, private channels, group DMs, DMs, and they all kind of have the same exact namespace and do the same exact thing. With the Conversations endpoints, we wanted to merge this all into one set. And so now, instead of having multiple API endpoints to work with, you can actually just call a single endpoint and pass a filter that says whether or not you want one or many of different types. So now I can ask for channels and private channels via the same set of endpoints, which is a lot easier to do than before, when you may have had to take 4 sets of endpoints, run them in parallel, merge them, and do all that messy stuff. And so the other thing that is important within the Conversations APIs is that we have pagination via a cursor paradigm built in from the start. And the reason why this is important might not be obvious to you if you're not seeing what we see on the Slack side. So going all the way back to the beginning of Slack, we built a lot of it, including our API, based on the constraints we knew about our own company. So imagine a couple of years ago, we were less than 100 people and maybe had a few hundred channels. So our APIs, as far as we were using them, didn't really require things like sophisticated pagination. And even our own clients reflected this and didn't need to do things like that. Fast forward to today, Slack itself is almost 1,000 people. I think we have somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 channels. But even that pales in comparison to the scale we're seeing from some of our customers. If you were to look at customers on the higher end, some of them have tens of thousands of channels, right? That's probably more channels than many apps have just seen, period. And you could get that from a single customer. And secondly, a lot of the companies we're working with have tens of thousands of employees or even hundreds of thousands. And so these things become even more and more important as our customer base grows. And we want to make sure that you're equipped to handle that size and scale right from the get-go by building in things like pagination. And so as far as getting started with shared channels, we just have a few easy steps for you to look at. So first one is obviously you want to look at using the Conversations API. Without doing this, you're not going to see the various types of shared objects via the API. And one really, really nice thing that we thought a lot about is that you're actually going to be able to use your existing OAuth scopes that correspond to the particular type with these endpoints. So if you have, for example, a channels read scope on a token, you can actually call the Conversations API to call Conversations list looking for channel objects. Secondly, the easiest way to adopt any of our APIs is always going to be to use our SDKs. These all have the Conversations APIs built into them already, and we'll stay up to date with a lot of the things that we're building going forward. Thirdly, we released this a few weeks ago. You definitely want to be testing your app with Steno. So Steno is an open source tool we released, like I said, a few weeks ago. And the basic idea behind this is that you can record and replay and even construct scenarios that you might encounter via the Slack API. So if you wanted to do something like test out a scenario where you would definitely have to use cursor-based pagination, then this is the thing that will help you build tests against that and ensure that your app is actually going to work. And lastly, you can actually come talk to us. So we're going to be across the way in the expo hall this afternoon, right after the talk at 2:30, as well as 2:20 tomorrow. I'll be there along with many of our platform engineers who help work on shared channels and can tell you everything that went into this and help you figure out how you may or may not want to work with your app in a shared channels context. And the starting point that you're going to want to go to is api.slack.com/sharedchannels. This includes an overview of all the changes that are happening for users, so you can kind of get a more kind of conceptual grasp on how you might want to adapt your app, if at all. And is also going to give you very specific pointers on how you may want to adapt specific APIs and parts of the Slack platform to fit your use case in shared channels. And that's all I have for today. If you have any other questions and you aren't able to find us in the expo hall, you can email us and our customer experience team at developers@slack.com. And my contact info is also up here as well. So thank you. So we have time for questions, about 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm going to ask you to line up in these inner aisles, and we're going to have mic runners to come up. And totally open to questions about shared channels more generally, but platform stuff is definitely most pressing for people here today. I think it can come to the front. No? OK.
Hello. I have a question regarding the exchanging of the existing tokens for the new tokens, which will be able then to be used for the shared channels, let's say in general for the bot scope.
Sorry, I can hear the last part.
Especially, let's say, if you have a full bot scope and you would like to migrate it to the shared channel, so actually the teams can use it within the Conversations API. Yeah,
so bot tokens, similar to the regular web API tokens, will work for the shared channels. Similar to the interaction you have with bots in regular channels, you're going to need to be invited into the channel before you can do anything in there. But as far as things like listing external members, channels that are shared, and doing all that stuff, your bot token is going to work with all that. But you'll have to use the set of endpoints for calling the Conversations endpoints if you're doing it with the web API.
How's it going? Thanks. Will app suggestions work with shared channels when your app gets shared into another channel?
Yeah, so app suggestions, so if you have markup on your website that shows you that there's an app to be installed if anybody's not familiar with it. So that will work in a shared channel. One thing that we're going to be thinking about is currently that's going to happen if the team that is sending the message doesn't have it installed. I think what we really want to start looking at is if it's the case that the other team or teams also don't have it installed in the context, not just when you're sending a link, but also if they're using the app, kind of with the examples that I had in here today. We want to think about ways that we can make that process simpler and more straightforward. But in sort of the default case that you're familiar with, where the team sending the link doesn't have it, that will still work. So.
It seems like you guys have changed your model in how you're rolling out features just a little bit, because this feature is technically in beta, but the documentation is public and people can start developing for it, which is great, right? As much notice as possible to get an app going is awesome. Is that something that we can expect going forward? And are there Steno examples and other collateral along with the API documentation?
Yeah, I would definitely say this is a trend you're going to be seeing more and more of. I think especially with something like shared channels, because the platform component is so important for us to get right, we wanted to make sure that developers were building this in step with us as we were going through the beta, because there's probably going to be things in addition to the Conversations API that we're going to want to build for you guys and girls as we're doing this. And so it's definitely, as far as bigger features, something we want to be mindful of. I think the exact mechanics of how we're going to do betas, I think, is going to continue to evolve. We haven't, at least as far as I'm aware, we haven't done one of this scale before where everybody could just go in and opt in. But generally speaking, we want to be, when it comes to features, I think we're going to be more open with our developer community even before some of the features go out, just because it's not just a matter of leaking something to the press or anything like that. It's just that if your app doesn't work when we release a feature, the experience is worse for everybody, including us, your customers, our customers. And so I think going forward, we want to have more and more stuff in advance, and not just platform-specific features. There's things that we're working on in other parts of Slack where if there are corresponding platform implications, we want to get that out in front of you as soon as we can, and definitely not right when it launches if it's not in beta.
How does slash commands work on shared channels?
Yeah, so
one team has an app installed. The other team gets access to it or not?
Yeah, so the question is, how do slash commands work in shared channels? And some of this applies more broadly to how apps work in shared channels as well. So the team that has the slash command installed will be the only one that sees it when they type the slash and get to pick from something and actually invoke it. The other team will not see that in their kind of slash command menu if they type the slash command, unless they also have it installed. Now, if your slash command sends a message into the channel, then both teams will see it. And similar to the few questions ago, I think in the same vein, when we're thinking about showing something from an app where the other team doesn't have it installed, we want to make the process of getting that installed on the other team much more fluid. But by default, it's not going to be exposed to the other team. And it's just because, to date, you probably made a lot of assumptions about who's accessing it, if it's installed on a team and everything. And we don't want to blow all those up right from the get-go.
It's great to see Slack enabling more and more interesting workflows. One question is, it seems that as you go deeper, especially when you get multiple enterprises, this notion of identity and how you do role mapping and permission becomes more and more sophisticated and complex. Is this anything, are there going to be best practices you guys are going to advertise to both enable how Slack maps their permission to the app's permission and how that can be extended to external organizations?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think permissions, especially around the platform in general, are something we're thinking very hard about. So we have the workspace token stuff that we released in beta pretty recently that we're trying to figure out to kind of undo this whole notion that a user that has installed something onto a team is kind of permanently bound to the app, and if they leave, that kind of goes with them. But I think as far as permissions more broadly in Slack, and this is kind of me putting the administrative hat on that we also think about with shared channels, is starting to kind of subdivide things even further. So if you think about a Slack team today, there's an owner and an admin and maybe some special privileges you get for approving apps or maybe a couple of other things. But you don't want to necessarily make someone an admin if you want them to invite a single guest, as an example. And so we're looking at ways where we can divide that role up even further. And as it currently stands in the user objects, we're exposing a lot of stuff around roles. And so to the extent that that might be useful inside of your app, we're definitely going to want to expose that to you in some way. But I think ultimately the models that other apps may have may be pretty unique compared to what exists in Slack. So with like Dropbox Paper as an example, they kind of have a different set of permissions that they sometimes want to enforce that are more restrictive than what is inside of a shared channel, and we don't want to override that and vice versa. So still kind of an ongoing discussion, I think, but it's something we're paying very close attention to.
Hi, so one thing that happens when you get people into a channel is that you start getting breakout DMs and MPIMs and stuff. Can you say anything about the philosophy of how that might work with shared channels? So
sorry, when you get invited into a channel, you get...
Once you have a group of people in a channel, you'll sometimes have breakout conversations, DMs, MPIMs, et cetera. And how will those work around the life cycle of a shared channel?
Yeah, so when two teams are in a shared channel, the people that are members of the shared channel are able to DM or group DM anyone that is also in the channel, and that includes people on the other team. And that's more in line with kind of what we were talking about in terms of making shared channels consistent with your regular channel experience. So there's going to be reasons why you need to share like a file, for example, with a few specific people, and starting a group DM with those 2 or 3 people is the fastest way to do it. And so as it pertains kind of how we look at this more broadly, when we look at administrative controls and things like that, that might be something that we'll provide for teams to prevent or require some kind of approval. But generally speaking, if you can do something inside of a channel that's not shared, we're going to try to make that experience work in some way inside of a shared channel.
Thanks, it's me again. I have one more question regarding how many teams actually can be included in the shared channels?
Yes, the question is how many teams can be included in shared channels. So what we're launching with today, we'll have 2 teams in one shared channel. Definitely philosophically kind of stepping back, like the idea with things like shared channels is to meet our customers where they are, and it's no secret that companies don't limit their interactions to just one other company at a given time. So it's definitely something we're thinking about expanding them to more than just one other team. But we want to make sure that we get this experience really, really right, not just from the end user perspective, but also the administrative perspective, and making sure that it works really, really well for all the different types of customers that Slack has. And so starting with just having one other team in there makes sure that, or ensures that we can get all those tiny details right and work through all the things that we're going to learn about in the beta. So eventually it might be more, but I think right now we're going to try to get this experience right.
So if you have an app that has maybe access to a lot of information about your users or messages, and you invite that into a shared channel, will it then only see the users and messages of users that have approved it to read them? Or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so general question, kind of data access in shared channels. So the kind of overarching notion with shared channels is that each team owns a copy of the information. And so that extends to what they're able to provide access to with platform apps. So if you've sent a message into a shared channel and you're on another team, I can access that via Slack and also via my platform app. So if you were to call, for example, that's a pigeon, OK. If you were, for example, to call like a channels.history API call, then you would see the full suite of messages in there. And that's trying to be in line with that thinking that we were talking about. I think as we go forward with shared channels and go deeper into the different retention and compliance scenarios, some of this will get a little more complicated. But as a general kind of overarching philosophy, each team has a copy of the data kind of end to end, and that only applies to things that are in the shared channel. So you'll be able to access that as an API developer and an app. Excuse me.
Okay, but when let's say the bot gets invited into the shared channel, right now it won't announce what kind of privileges it has of this shared data to the other team.
Yeah, so the assumption is that depending on whether you're starting a new channel or sharing an existing channel, we're going to provide warnings that say, by the way, your message history is being shared with the other team. They're going to have a copy of it. Treat it that way. And this is, in the beta testing we've done and a lot of the user research and everything, it's a paradigm people are pretty familiar with because of email. So in email, it's literally, 2 kind of disparate servers where you send something somewhere and you've kind of sent it to a foreign place where they're going to store it and everything. And so that's not precisely how it works because it's Slack on both sides, but kind of metaphorically, that is the approach we're taking. I think we have time for one more question, probably.
So for an app or a bot, is there any way to know who members of the team that initiated the shared channel? Like, I'm a bot installed on a team that initiates a shared channel. Am I able to tell the members of the other team within the shared channel?
Yeah, so when you call the APIs to list the members and you see all the different things that come in there, we have this notion of, and this is covered in the API documentation for shared channels, you're going to get what we call an external profile, which is a limited set of information on the users that are on the other team. We've intentionally removed a lot of things that we know teams are not going to want to share across teams by default. So things like custom profile fields, obviously you don't want to, by default, share them with another team and everything. So it's limited to a really small set of things that are necessary to identify who the other people are on the team. But you'll be able to access them via API. It's just going to be in that limited set as compared to what you would get from the team that it's installed on.
OK.
Yep. All right, I think that's it for time. Next session is starting at 2 o'clock, and been told to tell you to fill out the session survey in the mobile app. I don't actually know what that is, but it sounds cool. So thank you.